Hello, everybody. Thank you to Festival NewImages for having me here. This is a little talk about the freedom of creativity through experimentation, which is something that I'm doing from some years now. And I have to thank a lot the Society for Arts and Technology of Montreal and the French Embassy that the society, the SAT, allowed me to do the iBox, which was selected here at the festival. And the French Embassy allowed me to be here to speak with you. So creativity, freedom through experimentation. Why that? Because I just created the iBox, was my first VR experience. And it's really a process of experimentation, and I've been doing experimentation in the last 7 years now. And my little project, the iBox, is provocative and irreverent, provocative in the way I use the medium, and also in the way I'm treating the viewer. So I try to do this talk a little bit in that same way. Don't take anything personal. It's just to make ideas spin. Who am I? My name is Emmanuel Albano. So I didn't want to put flags, so I put people. So I'm half Italian and half French. So we have Leonardo da Vinci, because he did a lot of things in Milano, and I'm from the north of Italy. And my French side is from Besançon, the east of France, where the Frères Lumière town. And now I'm living in Canada, in Toronto, and I put a beautiful landscape of Canada. I have a scientific background. I did also some fun thing at Club Med as Club Med is a holiday resort, and I was animator there. I studied cinema, and after I immediately started working commercials, which is a very creative work to work. And quite fast, I started doing guerrilla marketing, which I believe was a sort of an introduction to immersive spaces and environment to me, because you're aware of the environment, and the authorities know what you're doing, but the people, the audience, have no clue, and you're playing with them. After I had the chance of doing a dome show in Milano, that was in 2007, and after we had the beautiful economic crisis in Europe, and I moved to Canada, where I started to work in the movie industry. And after 2 years, the movie industry was too big of an industry for me, with not a lot of space for creativity. And I moved to Toronto, and I started experimenting mostly with stereoscopic. So these are my real influences. So I'm from Italy. We have here Alberto Sordi, a lot of Jacques Tati was very big, Eric Cantona because he's fun, a lot of French people know these figures. Going back now to Canada, I have a very good friend, which I have an art project going. This is Niall Johnson, this is painting, and I'm learning a lot about the First Nations through his own storytelling, which I believe is the best thing, inspiring people like Chris Hadfield that brought art basically in space. Brian May, which made this fabulous VR experience with the Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know if some of you saw it, but for me it's one of the best ones. The inventors inspire me a lot in my stereoscopic thing. And I had the chance of using these two cameras that are very old now. They're more than 11 years. This is the immersive media camera from Canada. And this is another one from Pond Grey, another Canadian. That now is called FLIR, as many of you know. That is the basics of any 360 camera that exists. And these are the very inspiring people that I believe most of you know. Experimentation. What is experimentation for me? And experimentation basically, oops, it's not good like this. Equal, so it's play. Basically, the more when we grow up, we forget how to play, and it's very important. And the playing is a discovery. It's a discovery of, it's a journey. You discover, you experiment, and most of the time, it's a fun thing to do, and you laugh. Okay, I'm going to stay here. So this is my kid, and he's playing, and so I think he's lucky because he's able to play with all the VR equipment. He has a lot of fun, and this was kind of a test when to bring him outside when you have some virtual reality experience that are outdoor. So we just had the desire, it was the desire of feeling the real air outside in playing. So this is an idea that we call it open air VR, it's just to play. This was the Dome show I did in 2007 in Milano. I was hired by this event company that now is spread all over Europe. There is also one here in Paris. And they hired me challenging me. They said, we have all the equipment to do a Dome show, but we don't know how. Do you want to do it? Saying, yeah, I have no idea, but yeah, let's do it. And we ended up doing it, and it was a lot of fun. Maybe a little bit ahead of time for the clients. It didn't really understood the potential of the medium, but it's catching up now. And so basically, going back to Leonardo da Vinci, this is the horse of Leonardo. I had to create content for that Dome show experience. So this was, I had to learn how to make 360 pictures. And so this is why it's the little planet, but basically many formats. And this was done in 2007. This was done last year in Toronto. Basically still the same thing. And when you speak about the flat images, there's not, I don't consider this innovating anymore. And so that's, now I'm speaking a little bit of experimenting with stereoscopic. After Wim Wenders did Pina, it was extremely, it touches me a lot, and I really wanted to start to explore this universe of stereoscopic imagery. And this is a little... So the music is not the original one. Cannot use it anymore. So this is a music from So I wanted to show you this because experimenting with dancers, I don't have any dance background. You can see that with my figure. And it was great because I had to learn a dance language. And that was a choreography that was existing. I wanted to put it on camera. And so I learned how dancers work and how they master space. And when you do something stereoscopic, it's fantastic because there is something called la mise en place, which takes basically over of your directing or the mise en scène. And it's about placing objects in the volume. And there, and also on that, we had the same problem that affects the 3D movies on the big screen, is that there is a strobe effect on fast movements, and this is why now we're filming big movies in high frame rate. So I couldn't afford any high frame rate cameras for the next project, but I tried to use this strobe problem as a creative tool, and inspired by somebody that basically founded the Canadian film board in Canada, was Norman McLaren, that deeply inspired me. And we did this other piece. This is just a trailer. So what you see here, Freak, it's a very funny name. It's an association of francophone directors outside Quebec. But in French, c'est Front des réalisateurs indépendants du Canada, and it sounds like the things that we're all missing. We don't have. So this was very interesting. We really enjoyed to do this. And it triggers also something else during the editing part of it. That suddenly my timelines were looking strangely aesthetic and very nice, and this is something that I want to explore more deep, but doing the other way around. So to create a timeline that maybe will give me something very strange, interesting on screen. And the motivation behind this project, it's probably, you might find it silly, but both one of the dancers and myself were born on the 11th of April. Norman McLaren was born on the 11th of April in 2014 when we actually did this. It was his anniversary that was celebrated all over Canada, and of course the length is 4 minutes 11. Those are silly things that we do when we want to explore and when we have complete freedom of doing whatever we want. Next still is this camera changed a little bit things for me, because this is the Nokia also. I had the chance of testing it the year before, but in 2016 I could put my hands really, really deep inside and explore a lot about what it could do for me. So here it was with those Media Labs that now I'm collaborating with. And here's also a microphone, an ambisonic one. So the OZO was great. For me, it was bringing together the stereoscopic passion and the dome things together, and being able to put things in space within the spherical environment. And that was great. And this, basically, it's what triggered my next experience. And now, basically, I'm switching to the iBox, and I'm starting with grants, because it's a fundamental part when you want to explore and be free as an artist to do things. I got an artist residency with the SAT, Society of Art and Technology, and we were able to turn it into a real experience to go around in festival, and that was fabulous. And the grant system, the great thing about the grant system is that it gives you a ton of freedom. And there's the very practical part of it is the money to make the project. Another very, very, for me, extremely important part is that you're not the only one now that think that you want to do a project. You have an institution that tells you that your project is worth to be done, and that it's very important. And another great thing about getting an art grant is that you have your freedom, and your freedom is fundamental part of the grant. They will not give you a grant if you cannot prove them that you will be the sole proprietor of the creativity through all the process. So it's your project, and nobody can interfere with it. And so, of course, that virtual reality, there's this new medium that before was accessible only for universities. And we did a lot of research already in the past, but now we can play with it. And so what main question is, what can I do with it? And what is an experience? Because we speak a lot about a VR experience. So what is an experience? And since it was my first VR experience, and wanted to do it with complete freedom and fun, and this is how the iBox concept came. So I'm explaining you a little bit what's behind the iBox. The iBox is called the boîte à insultes, the insult box. And it's, I had to think a lot about what kind of experience I want to create. And I went back in my memories when I was younger, and there's good experience, bad experience, but the one that stick out were odd experience, strange one, like surreal things. And we have in north of Italy a bar called the Bar Stardo, which basically it's an imitation of a very famous a bar in Rome, south of Italy. But you get inside, and basically the waiter welcomes you with insults, and inside that place you insult everybody, you are insulted. It's very surreal, it's very strange. I went there a couple of times, and thinking more and more about it, I think maybe that's something I can try to recreate. And this is kind of a brainstorming with Tim, which is one of the actors, so sorry for the language.
Good afternoon, Emmanuel. How are you? You doing well? Enjoying yourself? Welcome. Welcome. Why did you wear that shirt? Seriously, why did you wear that shirt? That's the ugliest fucking shirt I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, matches your beard, you old fuck. What is your fucking problem, anyway? Hey, don't look away. Don't look away. Alright? Right here. You look back at me. me right now. You listen to me.
Anyways, sorry about that, but that was the kind of casting, the process of trying to understand where and how to do it. So this is actually at the end, this is the little poster we have, and as my half Italian part, speaking a lot with hands, we are very affectionate with this symbol here, and I found it was very funny to have that as an icon, because the iBox is interactive, so it lives as an application, and having this little thing on your phone, it's strange. I like it very much. It's fun. So how the iBox is structured, basically, you're surrounded with 4 actors. They start very nicely. They want to introduce, they tell you about themselves. They want your attention, but since you look around, basically they get jealous and they get upset slower and slower, and there is like a crescendo all the way to the insult, and here it's a very condensed part.
Hi, my name's Janine. I just want to really thank you for coming out and speaking with me today.
Ça va?
We can talk
Moi,
about
c'est
anything you
Xavier.
want.
Content d'être là.
How's your day
Merci pour
going so
l'invitation.
far?
C'est un super endroit.
Bonjour,
It
Attendez,
started
ça,
out
c'est,
not so great.
Julie Gilbert.
Vraiment
It was
original.
into the news,
Vous,
on TV,
vous
Les
savez
casques
comment?
là, quelle idée.
but
C'est vraiment fantastique.
Come back.
J'avais jamais vu
Come
ça.
back to me.
J'ai entendu
Wow.
parler,
Good
mais
conversation
ça
going.
marche comment?
It was a good chat.
Ça
Ok,
serait peut-être le
je
fun
garde ça
que
pour toi, y a pas de
vous
problème.
Okay.
faites
T'as passé une bonne
visiter,
Talk with them
c'est
for a
un peu
minute, that's
spécial.
fine.
Ouais, bah écoute, tu peux
But
parler de moi si tu veux.
Just
Moi,
get them out of the
j'étais,
way.
des amis,
Ignore
on
them.
a
They don't
lunché
even
au bord
speak
du
your
lac.
language, okay?
Il fait un
Look at me.
is that why you
Stay
disappeared?
with
Because
me.
you think that I'm not good enough?
Stay with
Well, guess what? I'm better than
tu
all those other people
reviens me
you're speaking to.
Ah, t'as pas remarqué que la
maybe
deuxième
not
fois,
as good
en
as
revenant
yourself,
me
because
voir
I'm
comme
sure
ça,
that
sans
you
fucking play with your
m'excuser,
friends, you little fucking
puis reste dans ton
friends.
trou
And
noir
this
perdu.
worthless
Moi, j'ai
nothing
rien à faire ici,
world.
je vais
She's
m'en
not gonna
aller.
care
Like that
anyway.
sheep
Nothing
that
to you.
thinks he's
Cache-toi,
the leader of the
cache-toi.
free world.
Moi,
He's
je
the
vais
leader
pas
of
vous
nothing.
Baby
là.
friends.
Neither are
Fais
you.
ta peur.
Hold
Va
on
voir
to
les
your
autres.
hands.
Allez voir les
Pas
autres.
chier,
Je
Chris.
peux pas partir, moi.
Festering
Toi,
piece
tu
of
dégages.
shit. Did you feel that?
Hey, c'est le
Did
fun,
you
hein?
Je sais
feel
pas
that?
pour toi,
Ah,
mais
je
moi,
me
je
sens
suis pas
tellement
mal.
bien, j'aurais pas pu le
just
sentir.
Je suis pas en colère, donc
Amazing.
vraiment bien.
Ah, j'ai vraiment l'impression
Vraiment bien.
qu'on est connectés cette fois-ci, surtout quand je me suis penchée après toi. Hey, ça c'était bon, hein?
So basically, this is a little bit, at the end, as you can notice, they thank you. They basically, you as a viewer, you are their therapy to bring out all the bad that they have inside. And I thought it was kind of fun to turn it into a therapeutic experience. You notice that is half French, half Italian. I wanted to make it as an official Canadian experience, since we have 2 official languages in Canada. And so we had a premiere in October at the Festival Nouveau Cinéma, and in December in Stereosphere, Belgium, we was kind of incredible, but we won an award right away as the best European VR experience. And we have a nice official selection here at the festival in Paris, and I'm going back to the symposium with it, and I have some unconfirmed ones. So the next one is an ego picture of me getting the award, which means a lot to me, because that festival was a festival dedicated to stereoscopic imaging before opening to VR. And so I'm going to tell you quickly how did that happen, because the grant was a very small grant, and the process and the research narrative. First big problem of VR, there's no rules, nobody really knows how to do it. There is something that I'm not completely agreeing with, which is called cinematic VR. When we speak about cinematic, immediately I think about cinema, and cinema relates to anything that lives within a frame, and see if the medium is 360. I don't like very much that, so I decided, okay, I'm not going that way for this first attempt of doing. The next one is empathy. We talk about empathy and VR being the ultimate empathy machine. Also here I have some difficulties. Maybe it's an illusion of empathy, but I believe that with sound and video you cannot give a full thing. I like very much what there's an installation here, a cocoon, that Mokuru do. I don't know exactly how to say it. I like what they're doing, playing with the elements of the air and the smells, I believe that's a better way to go than just a video and audio thing. So also there, empathy now, and basically the iBox goes the opposite direction of a research for empathy. The last one is very simple, passive 360. Why? Since I can make it interactive, let's use interactivity. It's very hidden interactivity. There's no pointers, there's no nothing. It works through the movement of the head of the viewer. So what is an experience? Basically, I already said earlier how the concept came. A very great thing I did with this that I'm very happy about. This, every year at SAT in Montreal, there's a symposium. You can see here there's a dome, and the dome they have there is a dome that's entirely dedicated to art. And every year they make this event called a symposium where half of the people are scientific researchers and half are artists. And why keeping this concept? It was still a concept at the time. To myself, when I have so many people there that can give me great inputs because they're all very familiar with what is a 360 imaging. And basically I share that also. It's very nice to have a conversation starter with something like that concept. So after making some people laugh quite a lot at these tables, so I'm right here, and basically we went back to Toronto, where I live, and we started to create a proof of concept to submit for an art grant for the residency at SAT. So this is Brian Quintero that helped me. We did we went in very different places. So it was really an exploration, and as many new adventures, you don't know where you're going, and here I'm half crying, half laughing, and not really sure that we're doing the right thing. But luckily we got accepted, and yeah, that was another issue, because for what I wanted to do, there was absolutely no software existing. I had to use many different software to do different parts of it. Another very important part is to find your device. I learned when experimenting with stereoscopic imaging that when you film on set, on that you need to be extremely aware if you're doing it for cinema, for TV, or for smaller screen, because you are filming different ways. In this case, it's not exactly the same, but keeping that idea of the device to be used was very important to allow us to create a project that was dedicated for one specific device that will basically respect and use the medium at its own maximum potential. And okay, with the Vive, you need a big computer, you need a cable. So to avoid strangulations, we opted for the Gear VR. And the immersive elements that I used were basically stereoscopic, which give you volume and scale and a sense of presence, interactivity, and specialized sound. That was basically getting everything we could for it. This is how the experience is viewed. You see an example. And the nice thing about watching people going through the iBox, even if it's kind of provocative, there's always a little smile under the headset, and something that it's very enjoyable to watch. So I'm going a little bit faster. The look, it's surreal, abstract, as you noticed. It's the black background behind the actors. I filmed on a green screen just to be able to add in post if I wanted a background. But we kept it like this because it has to be an experience that the viewer can feel it's in his head. It doesn't want to bring, I don't want to bring him anywhere. It's his head, his experience. Lens distortion, I love Monty Python. I like that fisheye distortion, so I undistorted the images, but not too much, to keep a little bit that surreal and comedic add-on that a fisheye gives. And the stereoscopic as a creative tool, so I don't know how many of you are aware of stereoscopic, but when you work with that, basically you give two different images on the eyes, and you have something called the screen plane, the zero plane, that in this case it's a sphere plane, but you can put people outside of it, but like when you relate it to a screen is inside the screen of the cinema, or outside, which is in the negative space, which is outside the screen but towards you. And in that case, with VR, you can generate something that you cannot see it on the headset, but you can feel a kind of oppression and a sense of invasion of your personal bubble. And this is where we went doing the iBox. So at the beginning, they're nicely outside, and after they go slowly inside. And it's something that you will not notice because your eyes do the work, but it's something that I believe you can feel quite well. And so this is, okay, that's an example of what it's coming over. It's working with actors. It's not English mother tongue, as you can hear, and I'm not French-Canadian mother tongue either. I'm French and Italian, but I needed to have the most spontaneous way of coming out with this escalation. And basically, I created a structure, and I worked a lot with the actors. So the same structure is what we call the narrative of this experience. It's a narrative structure that's based on this escalation of the actors. Anger is a difficult place to go for the actors. It's bringing a lot of themselves out. So we did a lot. I gave them a lot of time, and I think it was important to take care of them because no, they gave me so much for this, and it was important. Nice thing that we used a camera that has two lenses like this, and it really looks like a face. So it was kind of useful for them to have this eye contact. And basically, to be inclusive was the funny part, because we know only two things about the viewer, that he's wearing a headset, and 99% of the time he has clothes on, and that was our only element to play with. And so we wanted to be inclusive and to not leave out anybody. This is behind the scene.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Julie Gilbert. C'est vraiment chouette ici, hein? Merci de m'avoir invitée. Moi, je ne sors pas beaucoup en ville. Toi, tu viens souvent ici? C'est spécial, hein, comme place. Hein? C'est sombre.
I'm running a little bit out of time, so I'm going further.
Puis j'aime beaucoup le plein air. Puis
so that was, as you can see, that was an equirectangular format, which is a very destructive format for images. We used those two cameras, so basically we generated two 4K images, if you want some numbers. So we have 4K on every side, which if you add the top and the bottom, basically you end up with a 24K per eye experience, which there's no software that can handle that, there's no camera that can do that, but at the end, we use that big quality to shrink it down, to start with something quite big, that there's no 360 camera that can give you that quality at the moment. The stereoscopic alignment was, as I told before, you did for the raw footage. I bring it out, I undistort the image, I bring it back again to recheck my alignment. We did some sound, and so this is basically all the things that we're wearing, except that this one, that was for the fun of the picture, but wearing anaglyph glasses. I also have a 3D TV, so I was checking over and over all my stereoscopic thing. As music here is famous here, but maybe you don't recognize, but you know it under the name of Goblin. And he did all the music of Dario Argento horror movies, and he lives in Toronto, he's a friend of mine, and the funny part of this is I asked him, hey Maurizio, can you give me the worst elevator music you ever did? And basically accepted it. It was fun to ask to basically a rock star to give me a very bad music, and it's for the beginning of the experience where if you don't move, do anything, the actors are just looking at you and nothing happens. And there's that little music on the bottom, which is elevator thing, basically. And another very important guy is Austin Hitchcock, also quite funny because he's very far, but he's related. And he was extremely generous. I could use his equipment for a lot of the testings before, because otherwise I'm out of budget, but I would have gone far out of budget. And after the other part is creating the app, because all this footage, which is not in 360 at the moment, doesn't live in 360, was integrated in a software to put inside the app, and we had to create an interactivity plan. And as a filmmaker, I was not really used to that, And speaking with a game programmer, it's not the same thing as speaking with an editor. We have completely different languages. It was a very interesting process. And the stereoscopic plugin for gamers, for that platform doesn't work the same way of film. We had a lot of issues by misunderstanding and how the software was handling the stereoscopic imagery. And the delivery is probably the most agonizing part for me, because for every festival I need a serial number of every phone where the application is installed, because we are in the phase that the iBox is not online on a store, and it might not even get there because of the content limitations that are imposed by Oculus and Samsung. And so I'm insulting people here, so they might not accept it. This is at the premiere. When we premiere it, I'm almost done. When we premiere it, I had the feeling watching the people going through the experience that it was a little bit like an art installation, and I wanted feedback. I needed feedback. I wanted to be able to see everybody else going through it. And in the book that I left there, a comment book, I asked people to put insults, but actually instead there's a lot of very nice comments. And it's good to share that with the team. Reflections. So this basically, it's the reflections after doing this. The relationship with the viewer is very different from anything I've did before. This is a one-to-one experience. The viewer is having his own experience, and each person will have a different experience. And I believe that in this medium, you need to give a huge respect to the viewer, and to treat him with respect. So in my case, I was very careful in not hurting their eyes, so I did everything very carefully. But the content itself wants to hurt them a little bit, to shake, so that was part of the thing. I like very much the use of VR for installations, an installation style thing, so I probably will explore that in the future. Festivals, there's a lot of festivals that are used to passive, what is called the cinematic VR experience, passive 360, and they're not, there's some difficulties to bring an interactive application to them. And the distribution, where there's some maybe good news coming soon, so I don't want to say anything because nothing is official. This is the last thing, that there's room for everybody and everything. It's such a huge medium. It's used in medicals. There's so many fields that are using it. It's great. Just it needs to be explored more and more. And there's just a little advice that I thought about that before, but now this all come out, so it's almost useless. When I was researching a lot, you went to all these professional groups and all these influencers that know everything about VR, and at the end, if you really want to do something, don't believe anybody. Don't believe anybody that you find on those social media, because you waste your time. And give your time to your experience. You'll be able to explore, to have fun, because the term itself says it. If you follow, basically you're not ahead. So I'm not saying that everybody should be innovative, but do it for yourself. Explore what you can do, and you have a lot of fun. It's like going in a cave behind the first person that has the light. The person with the light is the one that's discovering the things. If you're behind, you're just discovering after. And this is just to thank you. It's a little.
That was good. That was so good. Did you feel that? Did you feel that? Oh, it just came alive. So visceral, so good, right from the gut. Real human experience. That's a reveal of human emotion. When I was insulting you, you looked like you were about to cry. It was beautiful. It was a moment. That's where we truly found our bond, right? Oh, man. This is just unbelievable. We've got it. I just can't wait to do this again. I'm so glad we did this together. What we shared today was beyond belief, beyond expectation. You know, it was just fantastic. Anyway, thank you. Just have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day. You just made mine. Love it. Enriching. Take care.
Thank you very much. If there's any questions, please. that I can answer.
So, from what I understand, you play with your new tool and you, in any way it's possible, and you just look at what you get as a result.
Well, it's a little bit, you prepare your, you don't, because otherwise you spend so much time and money to do it. But yeah, it's to have a mind open and consider this. I consider this a completely new medium without wanting to bring any of my film background inside of it. Just to use, to see what I could do. So I made a lot of researches, of course.
Well, I understand the research, how to play the power and everything, and how it works, and sound, and how the output, to get the output. But when it comes to creativity, do you just feel it like people use, like in movie, even though you don't want to bring your background, we can't, our experiences makes our own future experiences. So, you know, look through lenses, look through fabrics, look through anything, you know. So what would be your advice to someone who wants to say experiment?
Well, it's research a lot, because you get inspired by a lot of things, and basically you can take something from here, something from there, and it's not about copying, it's bringing together different elements. But if you're waiting and think that you're going to be creative without doing anything, that will never happen, unless there's extremely talented people that have it, but it's not my case. And then there's that feeling of enjoyment. When you have that, this was the case on this project, that there's some magic there that makes you want to do it a lot compared to other projects. Well, thank you very much for giving me the time, and for giving me your time. And I hope some of you will go to see the iBox. It's not so bad, like I said.